welcome to Plant Wisdom. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah. I'm so excited to chat with you.
It's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So you are, I love your titles, by the way. You're plant, spirit, and flower essence practitioner, multidimensional abundance coach, and Akashic Records Reader. And you help wellness professionals and empaths clear their inner blocks and clarify their life purpose. So that is just so beautiful in all the ways. And I would love to know, how did you combine your love for plants with like abundance and money? Because I think that intersection is so important and so interesting.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. It's so interesting because I think a lot of folks would think about, money and plants as being on very different ends of the spectrum of life, but to me, they are actually just different facets of the same core thing. And so I think it really starts with, just nutshell share here of how I grew up. I grew up with hippie parents, so eating organic food and taking plant medicine. Like I remember working with calendula salve at age 5 and learning that, calendula knit skin cells together at age 5 and just being like blown away by that. Or, working with different essential oils or tinctures. Like every fall, my mom would give us little echinacea tinctures, like they'd all be lined up on the counter for us to take. And so plants have always been a part of the journey. They've always been there. And my parents had like many countercultural hippie type folks back in the day, had this view of money as if it was totally separate from the rest of life. And it was this thing of like, it's okay to have a spiritual life. It's okay to be connected to holistic ways of being, but money is like the root of all evil kind of a thing. And it should be avoided at all costs. And so I grew up thinking that there was this dichotomy that I think a lot of folks in the healing arts struggle with. Honestly, a lot of my clients also struggle with this, where it's like there's this perception that either we can be in the heart and like doing the heart-centered work, but maybe, the finances are a bit more challenging to come by, or there's that thing of like being the starving artist, or, there's like all these typical, I'd say like stigmas around money that a lot of folks in the healing arts have. And then on the other end of that spectrum, it's like, or you can work a soul sucking corporate job and hate your life and only be in the mental linear layer of reality and like not be connected to the heart and not connected to the soul. So I had this pretty big aha moment about 10 years ago when my husband and I were actually driving back from Baja in our Vida bus that broke down 3 times on that trip. And we rolled into this gas station in Arizona, and I just broke down too. And I was like, is this just my destiny? Like, am I always destined to be broke and in the heart? Because of course the other option of, going the soul sucking corporate job, I'm like, I couldn't do that for longer than 3 months. Cause it's like, I'm a
Yeah.
heart-centered person. That's who I am. Like, that's not going anywhere. And so then I started to realize like, oh, I've totally been living out this narrative that my parents have subconsciously taught me. And then that led me on this totally big deep dive for 10 years into really looking at, okay, what is money really? And how do we have a good relationship with it? And how do we have money and the heart and the soul be in right relationship in our own life? And so what I have found as I have really explored that very deeply, including like going to grad school for organizational financial management, taking several financial money coaching certifications, as I have gone through that process of education, bringing my entire holistic framework into that, what I have found in my own experience is that our relationship with money, if we really take a step back, it's like our relationship with money is like an ecosystem. So if we think about our entire life as an ecosystem, and then money is a part of that, it's like if money were running the ecosystem of your life, like it would not be off to the side. It would not be this thing totally separate. It would just be very integrated, like water or nitrogen or hydrogen. And so really taking this view of nature as model and applying that to money and abundance, and then we can get like really, in the multidimensional aspects with like incorporating the flower of life and sacred geometry and how there are these like different abundance codes, very like structurally intertwined with how we relate to both nature, plant, spirit, communication, and also money and abundance. It's like, then the magic happens, because it's like when people who are oriented towards healing bring money into alignment with that, then money becomes a transformational tool for healing on the planet. And so that's like my big mission with the money piece, with the abundance piece, is that like the folks who are healers in like money's going to be there regardless in the world. And the folks who are healers on this planet, the invitation is like so big to really bring money into alignment with the healing mission of whatever it is that, that you're doing, because it's inevitable. Like whatever you're doing in your life, however you're like, you are oriented towards healing in every facet of your life, very likely, if you're listening to this podcast, I would imagine. And so if we bring money into alignment with that, it's like, then money becomes a transformational tool for healing too. So that's why I love the money piece and really incorporating that in, especially into nature-based, plant-based healing modalities, because I'm like, the plants literally show us how to be abundant beings. Like they show us like, how do you show up fully? Like, how do you show up fully in your cosmic soul self, like in the full divine light of who you are fully? How do you show up fully and be connected to the interconnected web of life, and like have those nutrients just cycling and flowing through you, just like the flow of money, like just like how there is this invitation for the abundance flow to come right through us. So yeah, those two, the plants, the work with plants and the work with money, and honestly, the work with the Akashic Records, because my main focus in the Akashic Records is all about soul purpose. It's like, those are all interconnected, just different facets of the same thing.
That is honestly like groundbreaking, Sarah. Like something in me shifted when you said that, like the money is like an ecosystem. And I was even picturing it like you were saying, like how plants use different nutrients to grow, and like we're taking care of that. And I think that's the biggest problem with healers, is putting it off separately. And there's like this huge disconnect. And I've done so much work on that myself. And like I just did like a spiritual money course, and it was just all these healers that aren't like understanding how these things go together. And I feel like the way that you've just talked about it is so clear. And if more people understood that, then I think they would be able to see like money is a good thing and money supports you, and it's just like integrated in everything. So that is amazing. That is just so good. And like, do you use plants in your actual coaching and your mentorship, or is it like, how do you incorporate that piece?
With the abundance piece specifically, you're asking?
Yes, yes.
Totally. So it totally depends on the person, because my framework is always that thing of your life as an ecosystem, whether the person is nature-based or not. So obviously, if they are not a nature lover, like my clients, if they're not really stoked on, nature consciousness and like who is nature and all of this, I just won't talk about that in the forefront of what we're doing. Like we'll look at more like, okay, let's look at your retirement savings plan and just very practical things.
Yeah.
Because just like being a human, I have found that the experience with money spans the entire spectrum of being going from like super, super practical, like spreadsheets, which I love. I have a ton of Virgo on my chart, so I love the spreadsheets, all the way to like being super metaphysical in these very like subtle, nuanced experiences, and on this layer of self-actualization in life. Like, so our experience with money, just like being in a human body, it spans that full spectrum. It's like our experience with money is like a fractal of our life in that way. And so for folks who obviously are not tuned into the language of nature, I just don't verbally talk about that framework, but it's always very present just behind every single thing that I'm saying. And then for folks who are into it, it's like the metaphors are endless. Like it's literally endless, like because the plants, they, like I said, like they just show us how to be. Like even Okay, so like for example, in my own business, like when something comes up that I'm confused by, or I'm at a crossroads, I'm at a choice point of like, I could take this option or that option, and I don't, and it's not immediately clear what direction to go, I'll just ask this question: how would nature do it?
Ah, I
And then
love
that
that.
answers the question. And it's like, oh my gosh, like if we can just bring that question in of how would nature do it, and like particularly with the financial piece, like anytime
Yeah.
we have a question, for example, you could think about, diversified income streams, right? Like that's
Yeah.
how nature would do it. Nature would have diversified income streams, which if you look at, building up like risk tolerance, you could look at that even like in your income streams, in your investment portfolio. Like you can apply that to any realm of life, that
Ah, yeah.
literally nature as model. It's like you can apply that to any realm of life with money.
I love that, and that makes it so much easier to understand too. I think there's this huge barrier of like money is hard to understand and these systems are too hard to learn. And now it's just like the way you're framing it is so easy. It's so easy. And what would nature do? Like that's it, it can be that simple, which is awesome. And how I found you was with your plant spirit summit, which was incredible. I remember seeing Erin Fugate post this in her stories, and I was like immediately like, I have to be there. This was incredible. What gave you the idea to put that on?
Well, the plants, first of all, and thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming. Like that experience was multidimensional bliss and joy every single day, like full on. I was working like 7 a.m. to midnight every single day on that summit for 6 weeks, and I have never felt so on fire in my life. Like it was amazing. So about last year, and I'd be curious too, to everyone listening, like, have you noticed anything shift in your orientation and relationship and experience with the plants in the past year? Because what I noticed for myself is, I've felt very connected to plant spirits for 13 years, at least consciously. I've known for 13 years that my life purpose is very connected to plant spirits in this lifetime on this planet right now. But it was always this thing of every time I'd tune in and I'd ask the plants, like, is it time yet to bring this forward? They'd be like, no, not yet, not yet, no, not yet. And over that time, I would, in order to tune in with them, I'd have to, center myself, like get really quiet and still, open up all the senses, and then receive information from them. And over the past year, what I noticed is that during COVID times, it was like this portal totally opened up in the relationship and experience. Have you also experienced this with the plants?
Yes.
It's like amazing, right? It's like clearly the time is shifting on the planet. Like clearly there are some planetary
Yeah.
shifts happening, which is really exciting in terms of that interface and connection between humans and plants, and like what is truly possible. Because what I found in my own experience and relationship with the plants over the last year is that I wouldn't have to go through this lengthy process of like dropping deeply into meditation and opening up all the stuff. It's like I would just go outside, and then the messages would be like really on the surface. Like I could like
Yeah.
see and hear the messages like through the petals of a calendula, or like through the leaves of the dead nettle, or just like looking at a sunflower stalk and or a dandelion, and just be, or like literally dandelion coming into my meditation totally spontaneously, completely unasked, and being like, this is what you do right now. You root your taproot way down deep. You put your crown up to the sun. Like you have a strong, straight stalk, like this is how to be a human and a dandelion at the same time, kind of a thing, which I'm like, okay, that kind of thing was never happening before last year, like that kind of spontaneous,
Yeah.
very actively engaged on the surface with the plants. And so that's been absolutely phenomenal. I'm so grateful to have the plants. Like, I don't know what I would have done this past year without the plants. Like, they've been a bedrock. Like,
Seriously, and exactly what
amazing.
you're saying. Like, I remember last year noticing so many people like starting gardens and like I was like, what is going on? And plants came to me like from all different angles. Like this plant behind me, my neighbor just came down the hall one day and was like, I can't keep this because my cat, do you want it? And like I've gotten plants as gifts from like 3 different people like last year, and then this year it continues. And even I feel like this podcast came, I was not planning on starting a podcast, and it was like last October that I was like pushed to do it. And I feel like what you were saying, a portal opened, and now it's like so clear that we have these messages. And so many people I see like tuning into plant spirits now, whereas before I don't think it was clear like that they have this like energy that is life-giving and giving us all different types of messages. So what are like, I know you said you got the message from Dandelion. Did you get any other messages from the past year?
Yeah, totally. And just real quick on the summit too, it was the plants asked me to do it, just like I'm sure
Oh
there was
yeah.
inspiration with the podcast, right? Of just they were showing me to really that they were really wanting to bring their multidimensional healing gifts forward, and that they were showing me this thing of having multiple different speakers, and that every single speaker was like a unique doorway of connection right directly into the plant realm. And so tuning into that, I was like, okay, well, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's a summit. And then personally, I have a very deep love and long-term life history, having grown up Quaker, of having social justice be very practical. And I always knew that working with BIPOC and QT BIPOC folks would be super integral, like integrally woven into the very fabric of what it was I was doing with my life purpose. And so with the summit, when the plants were introducing this idea to me of like, hey, here's this thing, we'd love for you to do this, I was like, oh, this is so great, because like the plants, like I have the blessing from the plants. I feel this huge passion inside of me that I really want to integrate like multiple diverse voices to
Yeah.
really explore this together. And it's just so important. And again, coming back to that thing of like, how would nature do it? It's like nature is so diverse. Like it's way more diverse
Yeah.
than like humans could ever even possibly, like anything that we could ever possibly do with diversity is like nature takes that to like to exponential levels beyond what we can do. And so I just love nature as a model for that. And you know, clearly like the plant realm, the messages that are coming through, I mean, you know, one that was super interesting to see, one of the plants that has really emerged in a huge way that I feel like is really, to me, feels like a planetary guardian for this entire year, is rose. And I have just been like, oh my God, loving the rose, just feeling her so present. She is so present. And I feel like
Wow.
she is really supporting us with, I mean, the grief is so
Yeah.
up in the collective right now. It's so
Yeah, we
up.
need Rose.
Yeah, totally. And I just, when I sit with Rose and call her in, and, you know, I have my little, you know, essential oil right here and
Yes.
essence, and like, I just love her so much. And I just have this feeling of her being this enveloping, being enveloped in a nourishing pink cloud in my heart space. That's what I feel when I
Yeah.
work with Rose.
Yeah. I feel that too, for sure. And I feel like I have used a lot of Rose in the last couple of months, just doing a lot of like forgiveness work and but also using like rose hydrosol, which I've never used before, and like rose water. And I can see how her medicine is so needed for the collective grief that is so needed that we're even in right now still. So I love that. And what do you think plants and flower essences teach us about living in unconditional love? I feel like this is like a segue from Rose.
Mm, yes, totally. I mean, I just feel like plants just hold up this incredible mirror for us. And so when I look at, I feel like this is so easy to access with flowers in particular, because we can literally watch a flower bloom from day to day. Or even there's something like dandelion in particular all over my yard. I love dandelion. Watching so much right now how it opens and closes with the sun, you know. And so we can literally
Yeah.
watch it rebloom every single day as we watch it rebloom with the sun.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the way that flowers in particular are oriented to this very natural unfolding of the self, that this, what they are showing us in this experience is that we can also live like this, like in the human version, of course, like the human form of that, but that there's this huge invitation to really live from the inside out, to unfold from the inside out. And that when we do that, we are unfolding from that core space of divine love. And so the plants, clearly they live in unconditional love. I mean, they love us so much. That
Yeah.
is one thing that is just so loud and clear through all of this, particularly over the past year, is like the plants love us so much. They love us so much. And when we drop into that essence of love, it's like it holds up a mirror for us to understand, like, oh, how can I embody and embrace this experience of love from the inside out myself.
I love that, and I so resonate with that. I wanna know, last year, I didn't even realize I was doing it at the time, but it was, I think, January, February. I was going through a challenging time, and, so many unknowns, like, where am I gonna live? What am I gonna do in my business? And it was before COVID, but I bought a water hyacinth at the market because I was just like, I know the story of, like, the water hyacinth, thrives underwater, even though it's like you don't see it blooming. And I was just like, that would be cool to have this. Like, I didn't know why I was doing it, but then I saw it growing over the months. And then COVID happened. And like, I think after I moved, and it was just like all these changes happened in my life, I think because I got this like sense of strength from the plant, like seeing it just grow from water. And I'm writing about this in a book I'm writing right now. And when I moved in my new place just a couple weeks ago, they gave me of course, like a thing of like peat, like soil and seeds to plant a little flower. And I'm like, of course. So it was like a new beginning. I'm planting this flower. And it's just like, I think people can use that as support in their life to mirror all these different changes going on and draw support from, like what you're saying. They love us and they want to support us.
Totally. And that thing, what's coming up for me right now, just hearing you talk about that, is that aspect of how the seed, like we could even, and I love that too, just like how money is like our relationship with money is totally a fractal for life. It's like nature, we can microscope into like a leaf or something, and we can understand the entire nature of reality. And so I
Yeah.
love like you bringing up this thing of the seeds, because it's like, okay, you focalize into a seed and it's like, wow, you can like really understand how things are functioning in the universe. And it's like, so
Yeah.
everything is contained within the seed. Like the entire, that
Yeah.
whole thing of like the mighty oak is contained within the acorn, or like, the thousands of forests are contained within one acorn. That it's like, the seed, it's like that potentiality, it's like all in one little tiny speck. And that
Oh
I
my God.
feel like this time that we are in right now, these portal times that we are in, it's like these seeds that we're planting right now, and particularly folks who are super connected to the plant realm, it's like the seeds that we are planting in consciousness, in our work as healers, like in the work in the garden, it's like those seeds are going to be broadcast very far and wide in terms of the ripple impact of healing on this planet. I feel that so strongly right now.
Wow. Wow. That is so, so powerful. Like that's happening for a reason right now and seeding, our new future. That's amazing. So my next question is, I know you work, and when your work, you connect a lot with the theme of how our internal and external environments reflect and affect each other. So can you tell us a bit more about that and how connecting with nature can help us cultivate and restore a sense of inner balance? 'Cause I think that's so important.
Totally. Yeah, thank you for asking that. It is so, I think, having that understanding of that the internal and external environments reflect and affect each other is something that I have felt very connected to for like since childhood. Actually, it was always really interesting for me to notice. Obviously, I'm sure like so many of your listeners like was a sensitive empathic child. Like I would just notice things like, oh, I'm in different environments and I feel differently as a result. And then about 15 years ago, I worked in wilderness therapy in Colorado and Utah. Yeah, which is amazing. So taking young adults out into the wilderness for multiple days at a time. They'd be out there for 8 to 12 weeks at a time and just doing therapeutic processing groups with them out in the wilderness. And what I found in that experience is that, as people were coming into this space where they were literally surrounded by the wholeness of nature, it's like we can't help but be impacted by that, because then and we wouldn't even talk about it. And in wilderness therapy, it's like we wouldn't really even talk about nature so much, which is after, as I was leaving that whole profession, I was like, I just really want to name it. Like, let's just start naming it, like how powerful nature is actually holding up this mirror for us, which is hence why I've like gone into this whole realm with the plants since that time. But it's like being in nature, it's so much easier to tap into our own wholeness. Or I think about, for example, like walking through a forest of, like I live near the redwoods. So when I go into the forest of the redwoods, I feel like I am literally walking through a field of meditators. And it's like that field of giant meditators who are so grounded and centered in their own presence, they're like radiating out calm presence, calm, abiding awareness, right? And so as a small human, I'm walking through this field of giant meditators, and that, like, those vibrations are impacting my own field. And so then I feel more peaceful, I feel more calm, as opposed to, say, like, not too hard to walk, we don't have to walk very far to find other environments that are full of disorder,
Mhm.
dysfunction, like things that really make us feel anxious and fearful. It's like, don't really have to go much further, honestly, than turning on the news to see that. And so it's just, we can very easily pick up, particularly for folks who are empathic and sensitive. It's like, we can totally pick up on these external environments and how they impact the internal one. And so what I love doing is just being in this interplay, this I would call it like this energetic flow of reciprocation with my environment, where it's like I can feel the wholeness of the trees coming into me, and then I feel my own like gratitude and love going out to them. And it's kind of like this figure eight, like coming into the heart and going out, and like coming in saying thank you and saying thank you going out, because it's just like, it's magic. Like, it's magic, and it's so accessible. Like, it's so simple. Like, we just need one tree or one plant that we just love so much, or one little patch of dirt, or, and it's like, it's available to anyone to connect in with this experience of wholeness, and to feel that reflected back to us. And I just feel like that is such a huge gift that nature offers us in this time.
I love that. I love that. I can't even imagine the energy of the redwoods. And just because I know exactly what you're talking about. I've experienced that on hikes. Like, you feel the trees like as beings. And I don't know if you've heard this, but isn't it like when you walk in and they like sway towards you or something, like they're saying hi? Have you heard that?
No, but I love that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. I'm like, I believe that because I just feel their presence like that, like what you're saying. And it's so easy like to just feel restored when you go in nature. Even when you have just plants in your home and having just like that vibration nearby, I can totally see what you're saying. I love the figure eight, like visualization of that energy and like helping each other too.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and even like with the houseplants, I just have to speak to that real quick, because that
Yeah.
is like, houseplants, they know us probably better than any plants,
Oh my
because
God.
they're literally with us all the time.
Yeah.
And so for 2 years, for example, like, so one of the plants that I've been working with very closely very recently is motherwort. And so for 2 years, literally, so motherwort loves to be outside, but I planted a motherwort plant in here like I guess 3 years ago at this point. And I knew that she wanted to be outside more, but I just loved her so much. And I loved having her in this space so much that we just kept transplanting her into bigger and bigger pots inside. And then after 2 years, I was like, okay, she really does need to go outside. But now that I'm working with the flower essence of this specific motherwort plant, like today, like this week, I can feel like that specific plant, it's like we know each other so well, because she was literally in my living room for 2 years before she went outside and like witnessed everything. Like, they are such compassionate, quiet, loving witnesses to our life, and our houseplants, they know us better than any of the plants. Period, is how
Oh
I
my
honestly feel
God.
about that.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that makes so much sense. I have two things to say about that. Yeah, I feel like my family has had plants in the like household. Like we have one plant that's been alive for 22 years and it's like been in our family and like we made so many other little plants from it, but it like isn't surviving as well in my new place. I wonder if there's something there energetically. But yeah, I know people that I worked with, clients who view their plants as more like they like their plants more than people, and it's like a huge thing to like actually, work with people. But and I've just seen them have healing experiences just with their house plants and like touching them, and it's just been like some of the most beautiful things I've witnessed. So I totally see that, and I wanted to talk about, so you make flower essences from your flowers, right?
Yeah, I love essences.
Yeah, I haven't worked with essences at all, but I have felt the call. It was like last fall where I was really like doing so much research into them, but not yet for some reason. But now that we're talking, I think the timing is soon. So how exactly do you use those?
Oh my God. For like, I literally have like 10 essences sitting right here. I just love it. I work with essences every single day. So, let's see. I'm like, how do I not use them? So, well, you've worked with hydrosols, right?
Yes.
So the hydrosol, I feel like the essences are like, um, in my experience, and this is obviously just like my own perception lens, like this is just one
Yeah.
person's lens. So just to share that, that's like really important to share. So I feel in my experience, I feel like there's kind of this spectrum from the essential oils to the essences, where I feel like the essential oils, they have in my experience in working with essential oils, they have a little bit more of a yang style energy. And then in my
Yeah.
experience, the essences have a little bit more of a yin style energy. And then the hydrosols are kind of in between the two, because they're infusing that scent property, which is a very like, you know, like sensory experience with this aspect of the water imprint.
Yeah.
And so I love hydrosols for that reason. I feel like they are a like a scent version of the flower essences. But oh man, so flower essences. Okay, so I feel like the flower essences, what they offer is a multidimensional experience in the body in a very integrated way. That's how I honestly experience them. So, for example, like pine flower essence was coming up really big yesterday, actually, in an Akashic Records session I was doing with someone. And so, any day that I feel like I need to connect more with my vertical central channel, I work with pine. Because that when I take pine, like when I take a pine essence and then meditate with it. And so that, I mean, anyone who's just like, where do I even start with flower essences? I would totally recommend just start by meditating for 5 minutes and then take a flower essence. It doesn't really even matter which one. You could just go to the store, or obviously make one would be great. But if that
Yeah.
feels too much, just go to the store, pick one up that you feel drawn to, and then just try a meditation with it, where it's like you meditate for 5 minutes first. And that is important to just come to the baseline of like, what does the self feel like? What's the neutral self feel like? Like that feels important to come to the foundation of the self first, and then taking the flower essence, and then notice what happens in meditation after that. And you'll likely notice, or what I find like is what I notice is that I will then start to be very aware of different aspects of either like somatically, I'll be aware of different aspects of things that are going on, or honestly, much more often than that, it's very energetic. So with, for example, with pine, it's like every time I work with pine, whether I even take the essence or just call the spirit of pine in, because the essences feel very connected to the spirit to me, I'll feel a super clear vertical central channel. So that one's really big. I'm like, what else do I have here? Well, rose, of course.
Oh,
Love
of
rose. So
course.
it's just like anytime I'm like, oh, I just want to feel this like yummy, nourishing, held in the heart. I'm like, rose. Just love her. So I'll work with rose for that.
Yeah.
Motherwort, like I mentioned, is just, I feel every time I work with motherwort, I feel her holding me like a mother. Like I feel like she's coming around and holding me and just being like, it's going to be okay. Like everything's going to be okay, from this very like solid, centered, mothering, so nurturing kind of experience. And then let's see, I'm like, who else do we have right here? Well, Dandelion, of course, like I shared
I've
earlier.
never used dandelion, so now you've got me
It's
really
amazing.
intrigued about dandelion and flower essences in general because I've never worked with those. But so do you make them just for yourself or do you sell them through your business too?
Right now, I'm just making them for me and friends, you know, and
Yeah.
I think, and that's the thing that my sense is that this is also happening for you. I'd be curious to hear of like the thing that's so cool about the plant journey is it's such a collaborative process. And so
Yeah.
like I've just been listening to the plants of like, what would they like me to do? And then I just do it. And I feel like it's so like it reminds me of the relationship in the human body, of the relationship between the heart and the head, and how for so long, like, you know, in this whole last age of Pisces, like that we have been very driven by the head.
Yeah.
And one of my greatest planetary teachers, Marco Pagachnik, who was in the summit as well, and he's so connected to Gaia consciousness. I studied with him at Findhorn in 2014, and he brought
Cool.
up this framework for me that was so helpful, where he was saying, in society, we have been trained to have the head lead and then the heart follow the head. He's like, but that's actually reversed of what the actual orientation actually is, which is true. If you look at the electromagnetic field of the body, the electromagnetic field of the heart is multiple times larger than that of the brain.
Yeah.
So if we let the heart actually be an organ of perception, which is what it is, it's like we can get so much more information through the heart than we can through the head as an organ of perception. And so as the heart perceives things, it's like the heart knows, we all know that, like the heart, it's like anytime we have a question of like, oh, what is this thing? It's like, if we really tune into the heart, like we know what the answer is.
Yes.
And then it's like the job of the head to execute, to like follow the heart and be like, okay, well, here's how you logistically actually carry that out in reality. Right. And so I feel in my experience, it's kind of like the same way, like that relationship between the heart and the head is kind of how I experience my relationship with the plants, where it's like the plants are so connected in the heart realm. And like, that is where I connect with them, is through my heart.
Yeah.
And then when I get different messages, like for example, with the summit or, doing this rose retreat or like, doing some retreats in Shasta this year, it's like, okay, so the plants are encouraging me to do this. And then it's my job as the human to be the 3-dimensional anchor in this reality to then make that happen. And I love that relationship. I love that collaboration, because I know that what I'm doing, when I listen and honor in that way with the plants, I know that whatever I'm doing is going to be really successful, because it's literally
Yeah.
supported by like multiple layers of reality behind this one, like through the plants, through the benevolent spirit realm. And I'm like, great, like they're suggesting I do this. I know it's going to be successful if I do it. So I am starting to feel this like, okay, yeah, the flower essences, it's coming. It's coming. It's
Yes,
not quite
because
time
I'm
yet, but
like,
it's
I
coming.
would get it from you 100%.
Oh, thank you. Very
Yeah, but
sweet.
I think you're so good at explaining different concepts like that, because I learned that too recently. Like the heart has like so much more electricity and power than the head. And it's like, why are we not using that? And we're like, we use both of them. It's not like one or the other. And I like how you frame that. And this is like the steps that it goes through. And the plants are heart centered. It's so true. And I would love to learn more about your retreats and what those look like, especially because they're in Mount Shasta, right? Which isn't that like a huge like portal of energy of some sorts?
Totally. Yeah. So I live in Southern Oregon. It's very, very, every single day I wake up, it's very clear to me that I'm living in the aura of Shasta. I know that I geographically live here because I was called here because of that mountain. The energy gets very intense, like as you get closer to the mountain. So I'm like, this is why I live an hour and a half away, because I don't think I could function if I
Oh
was
my God.
literally living next to it.
Yeah.
But it's a pilgrimage place for me for sure. And it feels like, a portal of divine love. Like that's what I feel when I look at that mountain, when I tune into that mountain, that's what I feel. And so the plants have been very clear in terms of my journey with them. They've been very clear about a suggestion to do retreats in Mount Shasta, which I have, literally been wanting to do retreats for 18 years, like wrote my grad school thesis on it, have been like planning my life in this direction. But again, just like with the stuff with the plants, it was always this internal listening of like honoring the right time is
Yeah.
so important. And like with anything that I feel connected to, I always ask these two questions of like, number one, is the content of the thing aligned? If the answer
Yeah.
to that is yes, great. But then the second question that's equally as important is the timing aligned? Because when the timing is aligned, it's like we can just go so far so fast. It's like we don't have to move within the constraints of linear time as much when we're honoring right timing, right aligned
Yeah.
timing. And so the retreats really are this thing of the right aligned timing. And so in particular, one of the ones we have coming up this summer that I am so excited about is for 88 Lionsgate. Are you familiar with
Oh, I
Lionsgate?
saw that. That's so powerful. That's like a really, really powerful energy.
Totally. Yeah. So it's this time that's totally this open portal of manifestation and abundance, which being so connected to that abundance vibration, I love that. And this year, 8/8 happens to fall on a weekend, which is awesome. But more importantly, it happens to fall on the new moon in Leo, which I'm like, what are the odds
Whoa.
of that? The new moon in Leo is happening exactly on 8/8 on a weekend. Like,
That's gonna
what
be
are the odds?
wild.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So in the
Yeah.
mornings, and we ran a beta retreat for this last year to make sure we could do it all like COVID safe and everything. And that was great. It's all outdoors, which I find that it is, again, with that aspect of the wholeness of nature reflecting the inner wholeness, that is really valuable to be able to really drop into that just vibration and frequency of wholeness, to be outside as much as possible. So that is how the retreat will be run, and at this beautiful off-grid outdoor retreat center. And so then in the mornings, what I love doing is doing these very experiential exercises that's a lot more tied with the abundance work of like a lot of people, like you mentioned, like a lot of people have old stories that kind of hold them back from
Yeah.
really stepping into the full, what I call like the full soul self in this life, like really bringing the cosmic full soul self forward into our work in this life. Like a lot of people have blocks around that. And one of the huge reasons that I work with money in particular is that a lot of the main blocks that are preventing people, particularly folks in the healing arts, from stepping forward really fully into their soul purpose, it's oftentimes tied with money. Like it's often tied with some like
Yeah.
weird story with money, which I totally get. I had that too. So I like completely understand that subjectively, what that experience is like, of like shifting through these old narratives into like what is the actual core true narrative and relationship with money. So we work through these very experiential exercises of really clearing out the blocks and the things that are holding us back from stepping into the full soul self in this life, and like really embodying the soul purpose, that whatever it is that we all came here to do, which like we came here for these times. Like anyone who is listening to this
Yes.
podcast, like these
Yeah.
are the times we came here for. It's now, it's these times. And so like if anything is holding you back from fully stepping into your soul work, clear it out. Like you just got to clear it out, because it's like now is the time. We are being called to the table. We are being called to really show up fully, of like, who are you fully step into who you are at that core level. So that's what we work on in the beginnings of the day. And then in the afternoons, we go around to different sacred sites in Mount Shasta that are super powerful. There are just some spots where it's like, I'll step into, for example, I was talking yesterday to a friend about like stepping into this one circle of trees where it's like the energy in there, it feels like the way that St. John's wort feels to me, which is just like epic light, like epic light. And I was there with another friend last year who lives in Shasta. And I was like, this circle of trees feels really special. And he's like, oh yeah, that's the healing room. I'm like, okay, great.
Wow.
And you can totally, yeah, it's like on the mountain and you can totally see the actual, like the peak of the mountain from that exact location. And so yeah, going around to different sacred sites, and particularly also working with the elements, that is really, really important, because one of the things that I feel is very, like what is very fundamentally out of balance on the planet at this time is the elements, which we feel experience very viscerally with, you know, out here in the West with the wildfires, and then in the Southeast, there's like the hurricanes. And so it's like the elements, like the water and the fire, the elements are out of balance right now. And so as we work with the elements in the retreats as well, to really like connect with the elements within the self, connect with the elements in the environment, connect with the elements with the different essences and plant spirits that we're working with, it's like we can help to understand how to bring those elements back into balance from a space of understanding the nature of reality as like the self as microcosm, and then nature as macrocosm. And as we look to like balance the elements in that relationship, as well as clearing out all the old crap that's like holding us back from fully stepping into our soul purpose, and also going to these very powerful natural portal sites in nature on the mountain, it's like, it's so magical. It's like full on bliss mode for, you know, 4 days.
That is incredible, Sarah. That's literally everything, like what you're saying that we need, like healing on the individual level to heal the collective, to heal nature. It's like all connected. And yeah, Mount Shasta has definitely been calling to me. And even, you know, as I was preparing for our conversation, I saw that you were doing the retreats, and then my breathwork teacher is there now, and she was like posting all these stories, and I just like felt the energy. I'm like, whoa, this place is something special. So that is so exciting. So you have one on 8/8, right? And then you have a rose one too, I saw.
Yes. Yeah, we have, and that one's almost full. There's only 2 spots left in Rose, but that's happening
Okay.
next month as well. And so that actually, interestingly, last year when I was feeling from the plant realm this huge call to start doing the plant-based retreats in Mount Shasta. And so I asked them like, who wants to work with us in May? And Rose was like immediately volunteered. It was like, me, I do. I was like, interesting. And then, so I was like, all right, well, let's see how this, you know, how does it go? Like, how does this play out? And And it's been super interesting since, because that happened in August when she came forward and was like, I want to work with you all in May. And I was like, okay, cool. So since August and this time, it's like a lot has happened planetarily, a lot has happened in the collective. And interestingly, like as you saw in the summit, it's so many, like 85 to 95% of our speakers were talking about how they have been feeling this call from Rose so strongly over the past year. And she is so clearly the medicine for this time. And one of the things that as leading up to the retreat, I've been tuning in with her, like, who are you really? Like, who are you on these deeper levels? And what she's been showing me is that, like, that she is so connected to divine love, and particularly the divine love of the sacred feminine. And so after learning that, which I'm sure like anyone who's very deeply connected with Rose, I'm sure feels that, because I then, of course, after seeing her show me this in like a very, like on a cosmic level, this is like who she is on a cosmic level. I then, of course, wanted to dive into the research to be like, okay, like culturally, like over the eons, over the ages, like how has this shown up? And just seeing like, she shows up in so much like religious iconography with the Great Mother, you know, with like Mother Mary, Guadalupe. There's like tons of images, of paintings like over the ages of her with the embodiment of the sacred feminine. And so I'm like, this is going to be a juicy one next month. I'm so excited. So yeah, we have 2 spots left in that, but really
Oh
excited for
my
that.
God, I so feel that though. Like, I think we're switching in masculine to feminine energy, right? In our collective. So that just like makes so much sense. And that's so powerful to look back in history and see she's been there and been represented that way. That is so, so cool. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm intrigued about these retreats, and I definitely want to look into the Lionsgate one, because that is just like an experience that changes you, like on a cellular level, on a soul level, everything, once you experience like that plant. And like I'm sure every journey that you walk people through there as well. So I think that's so beautiful that you waited for the right time, and it was always like your most powerful intention to come to fruition. I think that's fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just so magical there in general, and it's like it's just amazing to facilitate an incredible multidimensional magical experience where it's like we're simultaneously so grounded in the body and experiencing like a very full picture of the multidimensional reality that we're living in.
Yes, the plant allies are here to support us now. And I'm just so lit up and on fire from your fire. And you have such an important message to my listener. Like, don't wait. Now is your time. Get support with what you need to clear to get out of the way of you stepping into your full self, your highest self. So, where can my listener find you online and learn more about you and your retreats?
No, thank you so much. Yeah. So my website is saraartemisia.com. And then you can also find me on Instagram at akashic.plantspirit.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm so looking forward to staying connected and just being allies with plants with you. It's just so nice to connect with someone who, connects with the plants in this way. So thank you so, so much for being here and for sharing this with my listener.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
Yay.